I want to welcome all of you to the 10 Commandments of MBA Interviews to be presented by Natalie Greenblatt Epstein. Before we start, a few housekeeping items. Natalie is going to ask you a few questions during the presentation and ask you to raise your hand in response. You can do so by clicking on the hand icon, two icons underneath the horizontal orange arrow on your control panel. See, it's the little hand icon on there. Waving your hand at the monitor will not do anything. Somebody once tried that. So if you could just click on that icon so that I know you see it and know what to do, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, a lot of you see it. Just a little few more. Come on, just click on it. Again, we don't want. This is not going to be a passive webinar, folks. You gotta be able to do things. All right, and this is easier than jumping jacks. Raising hands allows you to respond to our questions, and there'll also be a poll in the course of the webinar. But what about your questions? We have less time at the end of Natalie's presentation for questions, and we'll answer them then. If you have a general question and we run out of time before answering it today, you can post it on Accepted's Facebook page or in our LinkedIn group. The Facebook page is facebook.com/accepted, and the LinkedIn group is, actually I'm not sure what the URL is. I think it's linkedin.com/group/acceptedcom, but you can always just do a search on LinkedIn for it. Final two points, we will announce a special offer for those of you who are here today at the end of the presentation. And when you leave, you'll receive a brief survey. Please fill it out. We value your feedback. Finally, I want to introduce Natalie Greenblatt Epstein. It's really a great pleasure to do so. She will be presenting the 10 Commandments of MBA Interviews today. Natalie has served as the B-School Admissions Director at the University of Michigan, Cornell Johnson, and Arizona State University. She's been working for Accepted, what is it now, since 2008, something like that, Natalie?
Yep.
It's been a while, all right.
Yeah, over 5 years.
Right. She brings enormous insight and perspective on the MBA application process, both as an admissions consultant and as a former director, to the webinar today. Without further ado, Natalie Greenblatt Epstein and the 10 Commandments of MBA Interviews.
Okay. Well, thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
Do we have a poll that asks where everybody is from? Can we do that?
Well, I'll tell you what. We can just ask them before we
Okay.
Well,
where
are you guys from? Right. Just put, if you could answer that question in the question window. India, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, yay, go Angelinos. India, California, Canada, New York City, India, D.C., Nigeria, sunny SoCal, all right. Azerbaijan, whoa. Toronto, Barcelona. Anybody else want to share? We have many from India.
It's a pretty global group.
Yeah, Charlotte, Jerusalem. Okay.
Nice.
India,
And
Kuwait. Wonderful, wonderful, all around the globe. That's great. And the second question, which we want to ask you, is which of these options best describes you? You applied round 1 and you have received at least one interview invitation. You applied round 1 and you are hoping to receive an interview invitation. You're just preparing for the future. You haven't submitted any applications yet, or other. Just let us know where you're at in this process. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's see how many have voted here.
about 60%.
Okay, we have 60%. Can we get it up a little higher? Again, if you just want to sit back, this is not going to be the webinar for you. Let's get a little bit more voting. We have 60% having voted. Let's get a little more. Come on, can we get over 70? Let's go. Let's see, which best identifies you? We even have an other there for any of you. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so now the results are, let me share it. 30% applied round 1 and have received at least one interview invitation. 24% are hoping to receive an interview invitation, but they are applicants from round 1. And 33% are just preparing for the future. They haven't yet submitted, and 12% belong to a different, an unknown category. Okay.
Okay.
Natalie, you're on.
All right. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you all. How do we, there we go. Thank you, Linda.
Okay.
All right. So let me tell you a little bit more about me. As Linda mentioned, I'm a former admissions director and dean. I've conducted well over 10,000 interviews, and as you know, interviews come in a variety of packages. They're interviews by invitations, some are open, some are hybrid. You have a choice of interview, open interview, or later on an interview by invitation. Some are blind, some are non-blind, some are traditional. We're going to mostly go over traditional interviews today. We also do programs for case-based and team-based interviews. Those take a little bit more effort. In fact, we're doing a case-based interview later on this afternoon for people that have already, or a team-based interview for people who have already been invited to a team-based activity. Some schools offer the option of coming on campus. Some are off campus. Some do it by Skype, phone. Now some of them are doing a little mini video ahead of time. So there's all sorts of interviews that you'll be privy to, and regardless of what they call it, you're going to have to perform, because interviews, to me, are one of the most important aspects of MBA admission. So my goal at the end of the session is to give you an understanding of what an admissions committee expects from an applicant during the interview. And essentially, it all boils down to fit. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to present fit. What I'd like to do is take the next 15 to 20 minutes to give you just some ideas, my presentation, some tips on what to do during an interview. And then what I'd like to do is ask one of you to step up and volunteer to be my guinea pig. I'd like to do a 15-minute mock interview. We've never done this before on Accepted.com, live, ad hoc, but I do mock interviews all the time. I want to give you the opportunity to see what a mock interview is like, what to expect during an interview, and then I'll do about 5 minutes of feedback for all of you to hear. And as a reward for the individual who is brave enough to step up and volunteer to be my guinea pig, I'll give you another 15 minutes of my time as a gift from Accepted.com at another time where we can talk about what you did right, what you did wrong, how I would restructure some of the answers that you said, what we can't get in the 5 minutes. So we'll do another 15 minutes later on this week. And then what I'd like to do is open it up for any questions that the entire audience has. So again, 20 minutes of presentation, 15 minutes of mock interview, 5 minutes of feedback, and about 10 minutes of questions for everybody else. And I hope that's okay with everyone. I'm noticing I got my bottom here again. Okay. So first thing that you need to know, really important stuff. Oh, I can't move my thing forward, Linda. My slide's not moving forward.
You should.
Yeah, it should, but it's not.
Okay, so bottom lower left. If you want, make, let's see if I can get control.
It was working fine before.
Well, I'll tell you what. I have a copy of the slides, so
okay.
let's me
I'll
do
just tell you when to move the slides. For some reason, it's just not moving for me.
I'll share it, and we'll go from there. It's good to have backup.
Yep. Thank you. So we'll start with
Well, now you got it. You got it. It's moving.
Oh,
now.
That was me?
Yeah.
I just did it
That's
myself.
You.
Okay.
Okay. So go back to
Perfect.
number 1.
Well, one thing I don't know is my technology, but one thing I do know is I know myself, and I expect you to know yourself too. And this includes your resume, it includes your essays, and it includes an elevator pitch. And the latter is something people don't really know they need to do. I'll talk about that a little bit more. But for your interview, you really need to be off book. I have a lot of clients now who say, oh, can I bring my resume with me or can I bring my essays with me to an interview? No, you need to be off book. That's a theater term. You can't be on script. You can't use your resume. You can't use your essays in front of you during an interview. And of course, if you're doing a phone interview or a Skype interview, you might have some notes with you, but I wouldn't be reading from your essay. I wouldn't be reading from your resume. Know it backwards and forwards. Memorize your resume. And you will undoubtedly have to conduct a resume walkthrough. So when an AdCom asks you to tell me about yourself, you need a variation of your resume walkthrough. It gives you an opportunity to add a little bit more color. So tell me about yourself and walk me through your resume, essentially the same things. But with a tell me about yourself, you can tell them something like, where you grew up or something atypical about your background. So for instance, if somebody asked me to tell me about myself before I got into the resume walkthrough, I would say I grew up in Michigan, I've lived around the world, I came back to Michigan for school, and then go from there. Okay? I would move quickly through my undergraduate education unless I had a substantial leadership position and can discuss that. And, add one or two tidbits of interest that might make sense. I had the lead in the university's Glee Club. I took a lead position in that. Move quickly on to your major and then your work experience, and go through the work experience chronologically. Add graduate school work if you've had it, and go from earliest to most recent, and give a positive reason for all transitions. So I know a lot of people, have lost jobs, they've been laid off, the company closes. Talk about being recruited to the next company as opposed to I got laid off. So keep things really positive, keep things moving, and again, sort of reverse chronological order from earliest to latest. Essays, pore over them. Make certain that you understand what you wrote from the deepest levels. In non-blind interviews, the questions will stem from your essays and from bits of your application. They may take some things off of your resume, but the bulk of it will be information that you shared in your essays. And then finally, everybody needs an elevator pitch. And I talked to my friend Rod Garcia, who's the director of admissions at MIT, about this a lot. He says when he meets people, he wants to hear their elevator pitch. When I meet most of my clients, they really have no idea what they want to do. They know what they don't want to do, but they really don't know what they do want to do. So we work really hard at trying to frame something that they're passionate about, that they have interest in, and that will make sense, give them a value proposition for attending school. So you need to do a little bit of soul searching if you haven't done so already. I'm guessing that half of you that have already applied to schools and the third of you that have been invited to interview have already gone through this process, but if you haven't, you need to make sure you do that before the interview. So you have to convince yourself that you have this vision for the future, and then you need to do this in 30 seconds. So you need to find a way to describe your goals, your vision, be clear, enthusiastic, and succinct. What is that vision statement about you? You're branding yourself. You're a brand now. You need to use this when you meet students, when you meet faculty, alumni, and members of the AdCom. They will want to know why you're applying to their school, and they want your 30-second elevator pitch. You should have an answer to that question. So I'll give you an example. This isn't really my background, but let's just say I'm a systems engineer. Okay, so I would say something like, I'm a systems engineer having worked at both large multinationals and a small startup. I'm hoping to take the skills and knowledge that I gain through business school to help turn around maturing companies in the technology space. I think this is a lot of the reason some schools are now asking for tweets, 140 characters or less, so that you have an idea of what your elevator pitch is about. Okay? Next slide. You need to know the school. Believe it or not, even when I get to the interview stage, I have clients that don't really know their school. I just talked to one yesterday. Had no idea. He's pitching something. He has no idea what the programs are at the school. He was BSing me. It was a lot of fluff, and I called him on it. So do your research. Talk to alumni, talk to students, talk to faculty. Attend every event the school holds in your area or on the internet. They're doing tons and tons of webinars. We're doing tons and tons of webinars with schools. Get to know the schools. What program does the school offer that aligns with your goals? Review faculty research. Call them, email them. They love to talk about themselves. They love to talk about their research. Schools want to see that you fit in with their program, and you have to know them before you can show fit. You need to use examples in your interview. I'm going to talk a little bit about frameworks now, because I think frameworks are the key to a solid interview. They're key to solid essays too, but they're really a key to a solid interview because they help you stay on track. So 3 frameworks that I use, and one was actually new to Linda, so I'll go through that a couple of times. 2 which were familiar to her were STAR and PAR. They're basically the same things, but I use STAR for positive examples and PAR for negative examples, and I'll explain why. The third one is GRIP. These are all your friends. STAR, PAR, and GRIP, all your friends. I've asked my clients to take each possible behavioral question, describe a time, tell me about a time, describe this, describe that. Take those behavioral questions and put them into frameworks. All right? Anytime you can ask in your head, when you make a statement, if you can ask in your head, for example, there's a framework behind it. Okay? STAR, if you don't know already, equals situation, task, action, result. And when I'm talking about results, I'm talking about quantifiable results. Increasing revenues, decreasing costs, increasing efficiency, increasing safety, increasing market share, something quantifiable. PAR, same sort of thing, problem, action, result. Again, results are always quantifiable. GRIP is a framework I use for team examples. Goals, roles, information, and process. The premise behind this, and it comes out of some research from the University of Michigan where I attended my MBA, from Noel Tichy. And he talks about functional teams and dysfunctional teams. So GRIP, you think about the word grip, it's holding tight. That's what a team does. A functional team holds tight. Everyone on the team knows the goal. Everyone on the team knows their roles and responsibilities. There's great communication, information. And there's a process and procedures by which to achieve the goal or the vision. That is a functional team. When one of those areas slips, you often have dysfunction. And sometimes it's correctable. Someone doesn't know his role or responsibility on the team. If he doesn't know the role or responsibility, it creates chaos on the team. So again, goals, roles, information, meaning communication, or process can be a functional team example, a dysfunctional team example. Using frameworks is the difference between the interviewer wanting to have a brief coffee with you, because I liken this to blind dating, or eating a 5-course meal with you. Your goal is to get them to eat a 5-course meal with you. Your goal is to make them interested enough to want to spend a lot of their limited time listening to your story, and frameworks will help you do that. Frameworks help you stay on point. You need to listen. One of my biggest pet peeves when interviewing candidates is they often over-prepared, over-rehearsed, and didn't listen to the question that I asked. So they had the stories, but they gave me the wrong story for the question that I asked. You should have many variations of your stories, and they can fit into different questions. But make certain that the story that you're using applies to the question that's being asked. For example, there's a big difference between a failure question and a mistake or a setback question. To me, failure is catastrophic. It's something that you really can't recover from, but you can learn from it. A mistake or a setback is something that you can fix. You can recover from these. You can correct them. Regardless, you need to offer a lesson for all three, and you need to show how you change behavior so that this kind of thing doesn't happen again. One last thing about failure and mistake questions is I don't ever want you blaming other people for the failures or mistakes. An AdCom is looking for you to blame yourself for the failure or the mistake. Don't put it off on a third party. Don't put it off on a system. You need to own it. You need to own it because you need to grow from it. It's kind of like muscle fiber. When you're working out, when you're doing weightlifting, Linda went to the gym this morning, so she knows about this. You'll tear the muscle fiber, okay? That's like a setback. That's a mistake. You tear the muscle fiber when you're lifting weights. But 2 days later, the muscle fiber has gotten stronger, and you can lift more. And that's the essence of a failure. You need to be able to grow from your failures. You need to be able to grow from your mistakes. There needs to be a lesson learned. Another aspect of this is talking. This is an expression my mother uses all the time. Talk too much and say too little. She tells me I talk too much and I say too little. Okay, these are tangents. Okay, you need to be succinct. Whatever you're thinking about, cut your answer in half. If you see your interviewer as yawning, you are in big trouble. You have lost that person. So what you can do to mitigate that is stick to the 80-20 rule. And frameworks, again, will help you here. Let the interviewer think that he or she is managing the interviewer, but you can manage the interview by speaking 80% of the time and letting your interviewer speak 20% of the time. And I'll tell you a little bit later on how you can make the interview a little bit more conversational. But first, I have to tell you about my biggest pet peeve, and that is appropriate behavior. You need to be nice to everybody you meet. I have denied admission to people who have been rude to my receptionists or rude to my my AdCom processors or rude to a student, and I hear about it. I hear about that attitude, and no matter what they offer, I will turn them down because that is not the person that fits well into my program. Okay? Along with understanding your behavior and being appropriate with every meeting that you make. Oh, let me just tell you one other thing about behaving appropriately. If you're at a reception, do not get drunk. Okay? Don't drink soda. Drink water. Drink iced tea. Do not get drunk because that will also send you walking from a program. Okay, on the day of the interview, make sure that you arrive on time if you're doing, or if you're Skyping, be on Skype 5 minutes beforehand. Arrive 5, 10, 15 minutes beforehand. Don't arrive an hour early. That's a little weird because then the receptionist has to entertain you and they don't want to really be doing that. 5, 10, 15 minutes. Sit out in your car or whatever, outside the street beforehand, or, mill about the halls. Show appropriate body language in the interview and outside the interview. No feet up on any desk, no feet up on any tables. Appropriate handshake. I would aim on the side of somewhere in the middle. And I was telling Linda this the other day too. I had somebody who was told they needed to have a strong handshake. Their handshake was so strong that it actually broke several bones in my hand. Don't go for the super strong handshake or the wimpy handshake. It's somewhere in the middle, and 2 shakes and you're fine. And if you have a sweaty palm, make sure you use a handkerchief in your palm and then tuck it into your pocket really quickly. And if you wind up having a sweaty brow later on, or you sneeze later on, you've got a handkerchief for that too. And while I'm on the subject of sneezing, since it's the cold and flu season, sneezing into your elbow and coughing into your elbow or into a handkerchief, so that at the end of the interview when you shake hands again, you're not doing it with a sneezy hand, because that's just unacceptable. When you, we talked about attire already, conservative attire, men, suits. Even if you're doing a Skype interview, women, suits or skirts and tops, or or nice sweaters, but aim on the side of conservative, and try to refrain from yawning by having a good night's sleep the night before, and drink some coffee or maybe a power drink that morning. And if you have too much nervous energy, one of the things I tell my clients to do is jump around before the interview, but not in the view of anybody else. Okay. Demonstrate enthusiasm. This is something we were trying to do. Get your energy and enthusiasm up. Stay positive. Be a company person. Back your company, even if they did terrible, terrible things to you. You're a company person. It's always positive. You're a school person. It's always positive. There's no reason to downgrade another school if they ask you to which other schools you applied. Don't downgrade the other school. Just uplift the school that you are interviewing with. So if you're interviewing at Columbia and they ask you to which other schools you applied and you say Wharton and Chicago, there's no reason to downgrade Wharton or Chicago in lieu of Columbia. You say, these are the reasons I think Columbia is the best fit for me, and there's no other reason to say, Chicago and Wharton are great schools, but Columbia best fits for me because of X, Y, or Z. Attitude is everything. So don't complain about the fact that you couldn't find parking or that your flight was delayed, and just stay positive. The energy is infectious. So remember, I taught you a little bit more about how to manage the conversation, making it more conversational and less interview. Engage the interviewer. So aside from small talk that you'll have in the beginning and offering solid eye contact, that's really important as well. Ask your interviewer questions throughout the interview, not just at the end, throughout the interview. If you're working on a project and they may not know about it, it's maybe a little too technical, ask them if they've ever heard about the project or the city that you came from. So even during a resume walkthrough, you can do this. For example, I'm doing my walkthrough of my resume, and I say, I do such and such. I'm working on the Google Loons project. Have you ever heard of Google Loons? I am working on the project that provides the loon material. So that way you get a yes, a no out of the interviewer, and it breaks up some of the monotony. All right, this goes without saying. You need to exude confidence, you need to be honest, and you need to exude quick thinking. So in terms of confidence, and I know this is a real problem for most people doing interviews, you need to use visualization techniques. You need to think of your success ahead of time. Think of yourself in that program. So all too often, an applicant will downplay his or her achievements. Interviews are not the time to do this. Wait until you're, out in the having fun with your buddies to talk about, how you mess things up. You need to exude confidence without arrogance throughout the interview, and you can do this best by demonstrating quantifiable results. Again, you've increased revenues, you've decreased costs, you've increased efficiency, you've decreased cycle time, you've increased customer satisfaction, market share. These accomplishments will lead you to the right display of attitude that you need to show the admissions committee. And even when you're describing a mistake, don't cut down on yourself. Okay. Honesty is so important in this process. I once had an applicant that claimed that he had Spanish proficiency on his resume. So at the last minute, I switched interviewers, and I asked a Spanish-speaking student to conduct the interview. Needless to say, he conducted part of the interview in Spanish, and this candidate didn't speak Spanish, so he didn't gain admission to the interview. Be honest. It's going to come back to haunt you if you're not honest about things. Finally, there are some questions that you'll never be able to prepare for. So just take a minute to think about them. I always ask people to bring a bottle of water, say, great question, take their bottle of water, untwist the cap from the water, take a sip of it. You're thinking the whole time. And the silence isn't as deafening to the admissions committee member as it is to you. They're usually jotting down notes. It's probably more awkward for you than it is for them, but don't worry about it. If you say, that's a great question and I need to think about it, it's perfectly fine. There can be a full minute of silence while you're thinking. Then put the answer into a framework, and you'll be able to answer a question that you didn't prepare for. Okay, and what I've been talking about throughout this process is preparation. You need to do a lot of reading. You need to rehearse. You need to relax. Use your phone to record the questions. There's lots of websites out there that have tons of questions that people add on after their interview. So even after you're done with the interview, we would expect you to add those questions on too. Tell us what interview questions you got. It's important so that other people can learn from this experience. You're not competing against those people anymore, but you need to be prepared. So have your friends ask you questions. We do mock interviews over and over again. We do coaching. Do this in the mirror. Look at yourself. Make sure you've got great eye contact. And finally, you need to follow up. Okay? Not just asking solid questions at the end of the interview. That's a given. You'll need to ask solid questions at the end of the interview. We have a lot of them on our website. For example, you might want to ask a student, what was the best advice you ever got from a first year? And to an AdCom, what's the best advice you ever gave to a first year? Something that is tangible, that's open-ended, that they can talk about. Don't ask questions about housing. Don't ask questions about placement. Don't ask questions about what you see on the website. Ask solid, open-ended, thoughtful questions that will help you when you're making a decision when you've been admitted to several different schools. Finally, make certain you thank the interviewer at the end of the interview for their time and for their attention, and send a written thank you. It can be, a real written thank you, or an email within 24 hours of the interview. Make certain that you mention something that you discussed in your interview so that they remember you 4 weeks later when they're looking at your application. Oh, yeah, that's the person that mentioned that they like Neapolitan ice cream. Okay, because you had that discussion about Neapolitan ice cream, and they'll remember that you're the Neapolitan ice cream guy. So, so make sure you follow up with a thank you note. And again, email, snail mail, no tweets, no SMS. This is the way to do it. So definitely ask them for their business card when you're done with the interview. So with that, I would also like to thank you for your time. And I will tell you that, while team-based and case-based interviews require some variations on your preparation, you can learn what it takes to succeed in preparing for an MBA interview by working with one of our consultants or coaches. And you should feel free to call me or email me or chat with us at accepted.com. And if someone is interested in being my guinea pig, I am more than interested in conducting a mock interview.
If you in the question window could just indicate that you're willing to be a mock interviewee, and then Natalie has posted the offer we have for participants in today's webinar, $25 off, non-rush MBA interview preparation. The coupon code is MBA25. Now, Natalie also mentioned that we're having, Jelena is offering to do the mock interview. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, Jelena. I'm going to unmute you, and then we can get going, okay? If anybody is interested in a mock team-based discussion, if we have enough interest, we will organize another one, okay, because we have one today. Jelena, can you?
Hello.
Hi, how are you? First of all,
hi, thank you so much for doing this. I'm so excited to work with you.
Is your name Helena or is it Jelena?
It's Yelena.
Yelena.
Yelena, yes.
Yelena. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Yelena. All right, very good. Linda, did you have anything else to say before I do a mock with Yelena?
No, I think let's give about 10 minutes for this mock, and then you'll give feedback, and I think it's going to be fantastic. I want to thank you for a wonderful presentation. There are people asking, how can I set up a mock interview? Well, you can go to the website, the link on the slide right now, accepted.com/MBA/interviewservices.aspx. There are links there both for the mock team-based interview, and that is both for Ross and for Wharton, and mock interviews for other schools where it's a more typical mock interview. You can, again, purchase that there. And Natalie also does, if you're applying to IMD, she also prepares for the mock case interview. Though I think
that's pretty unusual. That's a little bit more comprehensive, and it requires coaching.
Right. So, that would be interview coaching, not the mock interview.
Right.
So in any case, let's have a little bit. Let's do the mini mock interview right now.
Yeah, Yelena. All right,
yes.
Yelena.
All right. Yes, I'm here.
Hi. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Good. I'm terrific. Are you enjoying the weather?
Oh, well, yes. It's quite nice here in Serbia.
Okay. In Serbia. Okay.
Do you know
Great.
where it is?
Yeah, I do know where Serbia is. I've never been there, though.
Well, you're welcome if you want to come.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. Thank you so much. Well, what I want to do today is ask you some questions about your background and your goals, And then what I'd like to do is leave a few minutes at the end for questions that you have. How does that sound?
That sounds perfect.
Okay. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Jelena. I come from Belgrade, Serbia. I have lived here all my life. I'm currently a senior student at University of Belgrade. It is one of the top 500 universities from the Shanghai list. And I plan to enroll to an MBA at Columbia.
Okay. And what are your long and short-term goals? Why do you need an MBA?
Well, my short-term goal is to enroll to an MBA program right now because I need an advantage because I do come from Serbia and I plan to build up my career in New York. So although I do have some work experience here from here, my living town, from Belgrade, I actually plan to apply for an MBA so I can get that edge before enrolling to a real job position in a multinational company and so over.
Elena, I'm going to interrupt for just 1 second. I'm getting some feedback from participants that they're having a little trouble understanding you. Could you perhaps move closer to your mic?
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. Shall I proceed?
Yeah, go ahead and proceed with your goals. You said it's important for you to go to business school now in order to gain an advantage. What kind of advantage do you need? What is the goal post-MBA?
The post-MBA goal is to get a job at a multinational company in a financial sector, more precisely a banking sector such as Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, etc. And I need this MBA now because once I finish an MBA, I will have a better chance in getting an employment out there than I do now.
Okay, and what would you be doing at a multinational bank such as Merrill? What do you see yourself doing?
I see myself getting to a CEO position one day, but first, of course, I would start smaller and build my way up.
And what is that start smaller? What is your post-MBA goal?
Well, I must be honest with you, I haven't prepared for these types of questions right now, but I would really just take up on a job, any job practically out there, and build my way up by working hard, obviously.
Okay. And so why is Columbia the right school for you? What do we offer that you can't get at any other school?
Well, firstly, I have noticed that you have a cluster system as your teaching core. So I really think that is an effective way to educate students because clusters have around 50 people join together from different backgrounds, and I think that will enhance everybody's communication skills, enabling everybody to connect with various people. And although it is, of course, 50 people is not a too small group, but it's just enough to be efficient and effective.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I choose. I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, I was just going to ask if there's something else.
Yes, of course. It's the fact that Columbia is at New York and it is the financial capital of the world. So obviously, that's an advantage none of other universities have.
Okay. Well, you mentioned an interesting thing, and that is our cluster system. So as you're aware, given the cluster system, one of the things that's really important to us is the ability to work in teams. Can you describe a team that you've been on that worked really well together and why you think that happened?
As a matter of fact, yes, I can. I am a very important member of a marketing workshop here in my faculty, and I constantly work with various people from that workshop, and we make we make other people join various teams. And every time I was in a team, I was the leader of the team. For example, for the commercial events we have prepared for many years in the past. And each time the project was very successful due to very good communication and organization skills.
Okay, and what specifically was the project?
The project was to choose various commercials, such as educational, funny, or maybe even forbidden commercials, to have sponsors to provide money for benefit cause. So, and since that organization is a humanitarian one, so we have collected funds in order to help underprivileged children here in Serbia, and it was a lot of work actually. And so the project was to show commercials for our sponsors and for other interested parties, and to collect funds in order to help underprivileged children.
And how much did you collect in funds?
Well, we didn't collect that much. We actually collected around 500 euros. But given the fact that we are a kind of a small organization, and that these past years have been infected by the financial crisis, we are very satisfied with that result.
Okay. All right.
Natalie,
If I were to
provide
feedback, because we're
we're out of time. Okay.
Well, we're at about 15 minutes to the hour, and I know we also want
and we want to do questions. Yep. Okay. So quick feedback. Obviously, you need to work on the goals, particularly the short-term goal. So what is it you would like to do at a bank? There are a lot of different jobs at a bank, and how will it get you to the CEO level? I mean, what are the steps? So you need a real vision for your goals. I don't see that now. Okay, I'm not seeing what those goals are, and without having the goals, it's really hard for you to say why Columbia would help you. Certainly, New York is a big part of it. The cluster system, well, they definitely highlight it in their application and in their marketing materials, but it's not actually essential to what they offer programmatically. I mean, more importantly for you would actually be their finance curriculum and what they offer in terms of the curriculum. So I would dig down a little bit there. I would really examine what the different goals are, what the different aspects are in terms of what you would be doing at a bank post-MBA, and how your achievements up until now would enable you to do that. In terms of the team example, you would have done so much better by putting that into a framework, because I had to you immediately came out and said I was the team leader because you thought that was most important to establish. And that's not the most important thing to establish in a team question. That's most important to establish in a leadership question, but not in a team question. You want to be a team player in a team question. What you'd want to do is carry the framework along in terms of what actually happened with the project and get to the result. And immediately, Helena, you downplayed yourself. You qualified the amount of money that you raised. Now, I don't know that 500 euros is going to be a low amount because I don't know what the context is. So it might have been a huge amount if everybody else in the past had only raised 10 euros. And what do those 5 euros go towards? And what does that buy you in terms of this particular event? What is it? How does it add value? That's where the framework would have come into play. So I would take that same example, put it into situation, task, action, and results, and the results are raising the 500 euros and what it went to, and you should have a much stronger example for that particular for that particular question. And then, you know, with the resume walkthrough, I mean, it's hard for me to do this when I don't see your resume, but with the resume walkthrough, I like the fact that you asked me the questions. You did a great example there. You know, you talked about the why now, which was really good, but I want to hear a little bit more about the background and what achievements you have that would be intriguing to Columbia, okay? Or to any business.
Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. And we'll, my email, just so you have it, and I mean, everybody can have it, it's fine, is natalie@accepted.com. Just send me an email, and we'll set up a time to do more feedback and maybe do even just a little bit of coaching, and you'll send me your resume so I can help you with that. Okay?
Okay. And okay, I just wanted to know if you can tell me how much time do I have before I send you my resume?
Oh, whenever you want the feedback, I'll give it to you.
Oh, okay.
So you're on your own time, but I owe you 15 minutes of feedback. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
So well, you don't have to do it today or tomorrow. I'll even help you work on resumes.
Just don't wait for the last minute.
That's a service that we offer.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, let's take a few questions. Natalie, thank you so much. I think this is
my pleasure.
The
That was fun.
have been fantastic. The mock interview was, I think, eye-opening. Elena, thank you also for volunteering. Now we have really, really good questions coming in.
So, Linda, you're going to post the questions?
I'm going to post the questions. All right.
Okay.
Monique asks, hold on a second. I think a really good question. Frankly, it was something I was wondering about in terms of know thy school, right? You said that people should contact the professors. But the professors are busy people.
Yeah.
And, I mean, do they really want to be contacted by every single applicant? Or at least every applicant who's here? So, Monique says, what kind of questions, topics can we discuss with the faculty prior to the interview?
Yeah.
And my question then is just an add-on to his, but it's what was going through my head.
Okay. So I think, you know, a lot of my sources for great candidates came from faculty. And I think the key thing to do would be to look at their research and find something that really resonates with you. And when you contact them, it's a matter of saying, oh, I read your article in the Journal of Marketing or in the Journal of Finance, and I'm working on X, Y, and Z. I'd love 5 minutes of your time, because they can give you 5 minutes of their time to offer some insight. Now, will that work all the time? It won't work 100% of the time. And in fact, I would probably stay away from junior faculty who are working on trying to get tenure. The more established faculty have tons of time and can give you additional information about the research that they've done once they've been tenured. And they do love talking about their research. So if there's something that you can offer them, okay, maybe they were looking in your industry in terms of their research and say, oh, I see that you've done this, this research on mobile health. Well, I'm working on a mobile health project, or I'm working on a healthcare project, and I'd like to know where we would take this mobile. Can you please share that with me? Now, this might be a little bit more difficult for some of the smaller schools, but with schools that have a lot of faculty, it's really easy to do. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call. Don't be afraid to send them an email. The worst thing that can happen is that they say no, okay, or I don't have time, or they ignore you. But if you keep doing this, and this works for getting a job too, and you say, and you find the common ground, they will talk to you about their research. I mean, this is proven time and time again. So I haven't seen when I tell my clients to do this, They are rarely turned down. They are rarely turned down when they're seeking information about from the faculty members. And at the very least, you've done some research on the research that they're doing. So if they don't even answer you, you can say, I've read about Professor so-and-so's research, and it really goes in line with the kinds of things that I want to do in the future. Or it really resonated with me because this is the kind of stuff that I'm working on at work now.
Okay, great.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yes, and I believe it answers Monique's also.
Okay.
All right, Rebecca has an interesting question. Is it okay to share something personal in the interview if it is something that sets you apart? For example, I'm an American Jew, and my fiancé is a Palestinian Muslim. It's definitely something people say tells a lot about me, and I usually use it to answer the question, what is the biggest risk you've ever taken? Is this appropriate? Thank you, Rebecca.
That's a great question.
Yeah. I would say it depends on the question that's being asked.
I think it depends on the question. It depends on the audience. Some of these kinds of questions are best answered in the application itself and not in the interview. But I also think that this really depends on who you're interviewing with and whether they would think that that's a big risk and why they would they understand that this is a big risk, and what that question is. So if this is the biggest risk you've ever taken, you need to explain why it's risky for you. Is it because both of you are going to be ostracized by your families? Is that why it's risky? And the other issue is, what does that tell you in terms of business? You know, what does that mean in terms of the way you make business decisions? So in taking this risk, are you going to make other risks that are pivotal to your life later on? Because, I mean, are you going to take the hard line when you need to make a decision in business? So I think if you can relate the two, like if you were faced with an ethical dilemma later on, that you would stick with, you know, your values in the same way that you stuck with your values here at the risk of ostracizing your family. As long as you can make that connection, it's okay to bring up. I also think that is a really interesting thing about you.
Right.
So if they have is there anything else you'd like to add? You might want to add that at the end. This is something else I'd like to add because I think it says a lot about me and the kind of person I am.
Okay, great. We're having several questions. Actually, before I get to the questions, I just wanted, we did have a few questions asking me just to speak the URL for our MBA interview services, as well as the code again for the special that we're offering attendees today. The URL where you can get access to interview services, including mock interviews, interview coaching, and the team-based discussion, is accepted.com/MBA/interviewservices.aspx. It's on the slide, but just in case you're listening only, accepted.com/MBA/interviewservices.aspx, and the coupon code is MBA25, MBA25. Now, there's another question here that several people are asking, and that is, and Matu in particular has asked it, is there, do you have any specific advice for alumni interviews?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually, yeah, it is. It is different than an AdCom interview. Sometimes the alumni are, it depends. Sometimes the alumni go off book completely, meaning they're not using the script that the school will give them, or they're so completely on book that it's not conversational. So, so the small talk is really very important with the alumni, and then asking them, more at the end, a lot about themselves and about their experience, because people love to talk about themselves. At the end of the interview, I think will be really important for you. So tell me your experience at Stanford. You know, what did you enjoy most? Who was your favorite professor? Why? What did you gain from that experience? How are you able to use it now? What's the one thing you would have changed if you could turn the clock back? What's the one thing you could have changed? So alumni interviews, again, are typically, typically more casual, but there's some that just aren't used to doing this, so they're totally on book, and you just need to make it more conversational. But they're usually, I mean, alumni are usually very, very pleasant, and they can be deceiving because they're so pleasant and they're so rah-rah about their school that you'll think you'll nail the interview, and then you'd be surprised that you didn't. Okay. Some of them give you feedback at the end. I don't know. It really depends on the person who's doing it. I mean, I trusted my alumni to do the interviews in the same way that I would trust myself. So, I mean, that's why I trained them to do the interviews. They're a great representative of the school.
Okay. In that context, we've had a couple of questions where the experience of the applicant with the alum was not so positive. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be the last question. It's from Pamea, and he or she asks, what if the interviewer trashes your primary goal, i.e., from my personal experience as an Indian wanting to go into consulting in Europe, the interview categorically mentioned that it's a very unrealistic goal. How to handle that?
I am so glad you asked that question, because if you have any experience with an interviewer that is not a great experience and it's the interviewer's issue, not yours, you need to go to the admissions director and ask for another interview. I would probably have 10 of these a year where, and even one with a staff member of mine, where this person just did not get along with one of my staff members. I redid the interview. We brought that person back up to committee. When there are two that are consistent, it's an issue. But that person should be asking you questions and not commenting on your answer. And so that was an individual who wasn't well trained to conduct interviews. I would go to the director. It's not going to ruin your chances. I mean, if anything, if this person already had a distaste for you in the beginning by trashing your goal, this is not going to hurt you to go to the director and say, I would kindly request another interview. I did not have a good experience with my initial interview, and I'd prefer to interview with someone on the admissions committee, on phone, by Skype, in person, whatever. I'm amenable to whatever way you want to do the interview. How you handle it in the interview itself is you just let it ride. You can't, I don't know that, unless you have a very good reason for refuting that individual, you don't want to get into a tete-a-tete, except that,
I mean, you can even assume that in this particular case that the person means well. You say, well, I really appreciate your input, and then move on.
Right. You just don't want to make it confrontational.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to add that, over the years, I have been approached occasionally by applicants who come to me. Actually, I don't think even one was a client. They just contacted me, and they said, I had this horrible interview experience, and I don't know what to do. And I would, at that point, contact the admissions office, and in every single case, the admissions office just said, have this person contact me. They will not take away from their admissions chances. Either they would conduct another interview or they would discount they wanted to know if an interviewer was being confrontational, not representing the school well, or just making the applicant uncomfortable and behaving inappropriately. So that's just, obviously Natalie has the experience, but it's not only Natalie, it really is what the admissions committees want. And with that, I think we've come to the end of our session. We've actually gone over a little bit, which I normally try not to do, but Natalie was giving so much information and so much great advice and so much input, and I felt it was worth going over a little bit. I want to thank you all for joining us today, for sharing your questions, your thoughts, your concerns. Elena, specific thanks to you for participating in the mock interview. I think that also was eye-opening for many, many participants, just judging by how many of you have stayed till the end. If you have additional questions, please post them at facebook.com/accepted or on our LinkedIn group. And again, participants in today's webinar, $25 off any non-rush MBA interview preparation using code MBA25. You can purchase at accepted.com/MBA/interviewservices.aspx. Or just Google accepted.com interview coaching or mock interviews. Thank you so much for coming. Natalie, thank you so much for sharing your insight and your experience. And
thank you, Linda. And thanks to all of you. Thank you for coming.
And there are many thank you for listening. Coming in from the applicants too. So good luck with your interviews. Good luck with your applications. If we can be of help, please let us know.